Thanks for joining us on Bayside TV. Today on the show we have guest band The Sky Pilot performing, and we look at an issue that has a ripple effect on many people.
In Australia, every third marriage ends in divorce. During the past 2 decades, Australians have started to marry less and divorce more. About 1/3 of children today are born outside marriage, and about 3/4 of people who marry today lived with their partner before they were married. When people get married, they don't plan for failure, but sometimes it happens. It's heartbreaking and affects the couple as well as those close to the couple. So, what is the best way to move on after a divorce?
That's Bayside TV, moving on after divorce. And Helen Folwell from LAD, welcome.
Thank you.
What does LAD stand for?
It's actually Life After Divorce.
Okay, that's a good acronym though, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. And I do have a social group as well, which is called LADS. So,
okay,
yeah, that's
LAD and LADS.
through Brisbane, yeah.
Very good. Catherine Cloherty is with us as well. You're a psychologist?
Trained in psychology, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Fabulous.
And I've moved into secondary teaching now, so yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. But love the counselling with the young children.
And you've got a lot to bring to the program today, of course.
I hope so.
Yes. And my beautiful co-host, Christy B.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Life after divorce. Let's start with the question, have you or someone you know experienced divorce?
Well, I guess there's a number of people that I work with, obviously, who are going through separation and divorce, and obviously the journey right from contemplating separation all the way through to life after divorce, which I guess is where I started working with these people.
Okay. And did you start working out of any personal experience or challenge in that area?
Yeah, I did 7 years ago, and I discovered really from about 2007 I just gravitated naturally towards mentoring and coaching, you know, people going through the same journey, so yeah.
Wonderful. What about you, Catherine?
Yeah, the same. I know lots of people who've been through the same kind of things, and that led me to a similar journey, I suppose, but more within the church, that I started leading groups with divorce recovery, and yeah.
And kind of taken it from there.
Yeah,
and I really don't need to ask my wife.
I mean, we've had friends, you know, that so I think most people have been touched in some way with divorce and have, you know, had to walk journeys with people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess, I mean, the next question that flows from that, have you ever, you know, thought about leaving me? So
Absolutely not today.
Oh, that's such a relief.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Not today.
Yeah, not today. Oh, great. All right, moving right along.
You're safe.
Is divorce increasing, and if so, why, do you think, Helen?
I think there seems to be a trend where particularly women will actually make a decision to change their lifestyle. You know, I think sometimes if a marriage has been lengthy, maybe 15 to 20 years, I think sometimes women will get to a point where they feel that they'd like to start putting themselves first, or there's a catalyst in their lives, maybe it's a new job or finding new friends. And they're quite prepared to move forward then, sometimes, you know, on their own and take the responsibilities with them. Some of my male clients will also say a little bit later in the piece, probably around that kind of 45, 50s, that they will reach a stage of feeling they've worked really hard, they've provided everything, they've supplied everything, and they reach a point in their lives too where they think they actually finally want to move on and find something else, you know, that's going to be fulfilling for them.
Is there ever any point, you said lengthy, so is there ever any point where people go, nah, we've come too far? Like, is there, you know, do you hear of people getting divorced after 30, 40 years?
Yeah, there are.
Wow.
And I think that's a much harder client to move forward, really, because they've had 35 years or 40 years and it really is a lifestyle choice. So frequently they're not really in the space to start getting together the skills or even reaching out to find some help, you know, to actually do that. And the fallout, of course, is children and dependents in their 30s or 20s who also have to get into this effect as well. So it's pretty serious by the time they're kind of 30 years plus in a marriage.
It certainly is, isn't it? So I think one of the things about a marriage is growing old together. You know, that's, I guess, something that you have in your mind, and no one ever gets married, I don't think, with the thought of this isn't going to last forever either. What are the main contributing factors, Catherine, do you think, toward leading to a marriage breakdown?
Breakdown, oh gosh, there's so many. The breakdown of our culture, I think, that we're not training, or the older generations are not able to train the younger in what's involved in a marriage, just through lack of contact. I mean, there is so much work involved, and people are looking to the big day as the end, and it's actually the beginning.
And even some of the basic stresses, I say to Rob, you know, I don't know how these girls are going to cope because they don't know how to run a household. I'm not saying that it should just be the woman, but, you know, it's this, are they going to learn absolutely everything together? I don't know. And the stresses come. And
I think there's a big issue with the media too. They teach us to expect perfection, and it's a very I'm more important than you society. And you know, there's the whole instant gratification. No one wants to wait to have the satisfaction of a good marriage. They want it right now. And if they don't have it now, then, well, we're disposable, so we'll throw it out and get a new one. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Helen, from your perspective?
I think there's a high level of expectation when people do get married, particularly when they're in their kind of 20s or first marriages, certainly, that we really need to have it perfect. You know, why are we having to work? You know, there's a lot of generational stuff about we work at a marriage. You've got to work at relationships, and I believe you do. You know, it's when times get tough, you do really have to dig in and stand by your spouse. You know, but I think there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of distractions. There's lots of different ways to meet other people and get out and get on with your life. So sometimes that's more tempting than actually working at relationships.
And it is tough work. How much do you think the media is to blame, if you like, or Hollywood at presenting the ideals or even the easy way out?
Look, the romance movies are just so unrealistic, and that's what we build our lives around. We expect to have what's in the movies and what's on TV, and even, oh look, children from a very young age are looking for a perfect life, and you know, we come to believe that that's attainable, and it's just not. Yeah. It's
like dangling the carrot, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the time, it's out there somewhere.
If it's not the romance movies, it's these reality shows where people treat each other appallingly. Like the woman's either, you know, the servant, or she's this pampered princess that spends, you know, most of the money and her time getting nails and we're going, who does that? Yeah. And would you want to? I mean, what is it? Wife swap we often watch because you know, I think where would I go if I wanted to swap? No, I'm joking. It's like, you know, it's so unrealistic. That's unrealistic too, and yet it's supposed to be reality.
Yeah,
it should be called unreality TV. And so someone's getting maybe to the stage where they're thinking that their relationship is over. What are the odds of someone in that place where they've fallen out of love, they really don't want to persist anymore? What are the odds at that stage of someone actually turning the whole thing around and coming back to a solid marriage with that person?
If there are enough influences around them in their extended family, and I mean grandparents and, you know, grandchildren, other people cementing that couple, it makes it a lot harder to actually move out of that relationship because there's no support available, you know, and frequently people don't want to break up their marriage or their families knowing that they will actually have to then go it alone and probably be ostracised. So there are some controls.
Okay. All right, we'll pick this up a little bit more after the break, and we're going to be particularly focusing on moving on after divorce. What can we do? After the break, we have Street Talk with Campbell Vandersloot, so make sure you stay tuned.
Divorce can affect a lot of people. Has it affected you? Have you ever been affected by a divorce?
Ah, no, we were just talking about that, yes.
Oh, right.
Twice.
And how has that affected you?
It's made me more independent.
No, not at all. My parents are still together and very happy, so...
That's cool.
That's good.
No, I've been very lucky in that situation. No, none at all.
So not even like your
I've known people, none in my... there's been one person that I know, but we always knew about that coming, so it was not something that really impacted on us too much.
A divorce? No, not at all. No divorce. No marriage, no divorce.
Okay, well, you can't get divorced if you haven't been married.
No.
Yes, my parents are divorced. It happened when I was about 16. And yeah, I've just lived with my mum and my sister since then.
I think it affects people in different ways. My ex-girlfriend, her parents got divorced and her father cheated on her mother, and now she's got issues with like people cheat like like trust issues sort of thing. So I think it affects people in different ways, and it affects them later on in life maybe.
Yes, I'm divorced and remarried, and I know many others who are as well.
Did you find it hard to remarry after having your divorce?
No, I didn't. I came into a second friendship and eventually marriage fairly quickly after the divorce, much more quickly than I'd intended.
So just you stop relying on other people for certain things, emotion?
Yep. Start looking more to myself for stuff.
Oh, well, that's good. That's a positive that came out of it anyway. Oh, good.
Today on Bayside TV, moving on after divorce. Christy B.
Yeah, on Street Talk, the older guy, said that he found it quite quick to move on. Is there any statistical evidence that says whether men or women find it easier after a divorce?
I haven't found anything statistical, but I do think that people who can move on relatively quickly and harmoniously, let's say after a divorce, can only mean that the marriage ending must have been pretty harmonious as well, at least amicable, and probably with older children.
Yeah, I mean, what I find is that we're both couples, basically, both people in the couple have become resigned to the fact it's happening. The hardest thing is if the guy still loves the woman or the woman still loves the guy, but it is over. Like, what do you do in those sort of situations?
There's not a lot you can do. You can really make an effort to love the other person and try and fan the flame again, I suppose. But if one person's made up their mind, and there's not really much you can do. You're into grieving then. Yeah.
So you're really helping somebody grieve through the situation.
For sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's pick up on the issue of children. Is it better for a couple to stay together if children are involved, especially young children?
I don't think anyone really thinks too much about the children, strangely enough. I think fathers do. I think men are much more dutiful and protective and will hang around until even the last child goes to uni. Women will leave at any age, with their children at any age. Yeah.
You see, looking on, when I see a woman walk away from a marriage, I think, oh my goodness, how difficult would that be? Because I think as a mother, and I would think about the children, whereas I find I like to. You would
think it was the other way around.
Yeah, I would.
But we men are better than you thought. Isn't that right, Helen?
I think they just know which side their bread's buttered, actually. I think they'll actually stay in a marriage a lot longer than they
I should have just moved on to the next question.
So, it's really quite strange, because I think women, when they actually make a decision, I think it has come over a long time of soul searching and putting a lot of emotional energy into leaving the relationship. And when they go, they go. And men frequently will have spent similar time, similar numbers of years, but they will stay until they feel that their duty is done.
Okay.
Which is still hurtful to the other party anyway, but yeah.
Wow. Is it better when a marriage finishes harmoniously, and is that always a choice?
Absolutely, on both counts, yeah. It's much better for the children, for everyone moving on, if there's harmony and you can learn to get along. Absolutely, yeah.
Don't you think the children then are going, Mum and Dad seem to be okay, and I'm not suggesting that there's fights or arguments, but then does that not send an even more confusing message to them? Why can't you just love each other? Why can't you just get on?
Yeah, I think you need to be very transparent with the children as far as you can, what they can handle and the age they're at, and explain that it's better for everyone if we don't get along. Don't live together because we don't get along. Yeah. And look, I think if you asked any child of a broken marriage if it was better before or after, most of them will say it was better after, in the long run. Yeah. Maybe not immediately, of course not immediately. Yeah.
Helen, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I can remember actually a client last year said that her 11-year-old girl used to cry at night. And one morning she actually confronted her and said, I know Daddy and I, we don't get on, and are you worried then that we're going to get divorced? And she said, no, all my friends' parents have got divorced and you haven't yet, because she knew how hard it was, so she was actually crying at night because they weren't getting divorced. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, definitely children are they're very concerned, and I know my one daughter, she always comes home and says, oh, you know, they're getting separated or they're in different rooms, and are you and Daddy okay? And sometimes when we're trying to get over jet lag, we have no problems in going to separate rooms for a day or two just to get sleep, and our 10-year-old's going, are you okay? Are you okay?
That's right,
and we're going, we're exhausted.
We're just exhausted.
Last night we slept in every
sleep.
room in the house. It does not mean that we're getting a divorce. I think there'll be other signs.
Let's have a look at some of the ongoing effects of divorce in someone's life. Can we unpack some of that?
Oh gosh, there are so many. Yeah, financial, it's a massive strain financially, emotionally. It's really hard, especially, I mean, obviously if there are children involved, because you can't, it's like the other person's died, but there's no closure because there's no funeral, there's no end to it, because you'll always be seeing the other person ongoing. That's why it's so important to try and make it as harmonious as you can, to reconcile to a point where you're able to actually have a conversation with the person. Sometimes that's as far as you can get, but yeah, gosh, that's a hard ongoing effect.
So you've got all those ripple effects.
Absolutely,
that keep going all the way through.
Yeah.
I do work with a lot of couples for mediating as they go through the whole CSA issues and settlement and the actual divorce, and obviously children's matters and legal stuff. And while I'm doing that, I also have information that while I'm working with Relationships Australia, they told me that every couple who comes in, obviously, if they've got a children's issue that, you know, potentially could go to court, they only have about 20% of those people who actually will go to court. But it's a pretty high figure as well, given that the court system is completely log-jammed with, you know, return dates of maybe a year or so before you actually go even to trial, if you end up going to trial. So the unfortunate side of it is that most parents, by sheer virtue of them leaving each other in the first place, they don't agree. So, and they're unlikely to without the motivation of feeling in love anymore or having to work at the relationship. So there's a lot of dysfunction, a lot of arguing with co-parents.
What are the best ways to recover?
I always think that if you really focus on, at least, is this in the best interest of the children, or preface every conversation or every negotiation that you're entering into with, well, at least will it harm them? You know, let the kids see the parents or let them see the other parent. But I had a father in last week who, every time he speaks to his ex-wife, and this is a couple that I'm mediating with at the moment, they argue to such a point now it's almost a stalemate. And finally, as we talked it through, I said to him, how much do you love your kids? And he said, well, I'd give my right arm. And I said, well, how lucky are you then that you're not actually having to give your right arm? Just be nice to your ex-wife, you know, because obviously they'll have a lot more agreement between them if they're not constantly, you know, just winding each other up.
Yeah, true. Catherine, what have you found in regard to recovery?
Look, you've got to give yourself time. Need to work out a new way of living. You've got to create a new lifestyle for yourself and your children if you have them with you. You basically got to rebuild, and you need to. It really comes down to time. You need to try and get support from people around you. Let people know that you're struggling. Make sure you get professional help if you need to. Just really, really important to take the time.
And be gentle on yourself. Yeah, I would imagine. After the break, we have guest artists The Sky Pilot performing, which I'm sure you're really going to enjoy. Welcome back to Bayside TV. I'd like to thank my guests for a great discussion, now performing their title song Lighthouse from their debut album, which is available on iTunes. Here is The Sky Pilot.
Storming down a slow, long road, and my feet are tired and weak, 'cause I can see thousands of stars in the sky, but none of them are my guide. There's a lighthouse on the hill. There's a lighthouse on the hill. Lights, darkness, darkness. Opportunity, please find me, 'cause I've never been this lost before. Every time I look upon that hill, that lighthouse is drawn close to me. Oh, the light it shines is drawn close to me. Oh, the light it shines is drawn close to me. Yeah, lighthouse, will you keep shining? 'Cause I will follow you, yeah, through the darkness, darkness. Lighthouse, will you keep shining? 'Cause I will follow you, yeah, through the darkness, darkness. Through the darkness, darkness.